Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to just continue to review Tommy Oliver episodes from Power Rangers. Because I have, of course, remembered uh, a certain story of a Power Rangers Zeo episode. And I'm like, you know what? I really just want to go on and watch this episode, and ended up realizing it was a 2 episode story arc. And I was like, okay, all right. So I thought I would go on and finally cover Power Rangers Zeo episodes 41 and 42, dubbed King for a Day, where in the episodes we go on to find out that Tommy had somehow been captured by Prince Gasket and Princess Archerina and been brain drained. And so Tommy has forgotten who he is, and it seems that he needs the help of the other Power Rangers Zeo Rangers to go on and find him and convince him of who he is. And so, while we also have Bulk and Skull, who are also kind of trapped in the Machine Empire, trying to fight off the Cogs, and meeting with a character named Triton. Sure. Alright, just a weird, unusual creature. And so, I also wanted to cover something that dealt with the Machine Empire, and so I thought I would go on and also cover the Power Rangers Wildforce Forever Red episode, which is kind of to be the conclusion of the Machine Empire, because after everything was to be kind of neutralized or wiped out via the Power Rangers in Space story, and we were to think that the Machine Empire was all but done, come to find out we were wrong, because some remnants of the Machine Empire was still standing. Yeah, they go on to really just all really look like Beetleborgs or common riders, or whichever. Like, that's who the kind of the villains are in this episode, and they look very goofy. But hey, like, it was a one-off episode, and so I'm sure they're just like, hey man, like, instead of just we're spending a lot of money having all these rangers in this episode, how about instead we just go on and just kind of find whatever we have left to just kind of put up some kind of villains for these episodes. And I'm like, you know what, like, that makes sense. And so, with that said, in all honesty, so Power Rangers Zeo episodes 41 and 42 are surprisingly, it's just like an okay storyline or story arc, because I feel like there was not much of any action in here. It honestly really is mostly like an Easter egg kind of story where you're just like, oh my god, like, that's that monster from episode so and so, and oh, this is that monster from episode so and so. Oh my god, isn't this great? Easter eggs. This is cool. And so on and so forth. But really, it doesn't have much value beyond that. And so, we of course have Power Rangers Wildforce episode 34, which, beyond its weird, goofy villains for this episode, I would just state, like, overall, like, I felt that Forever Red is easily just a great episode. Like, of course, for every time a season is to pass, we're to realize that they should probably go on and do, like, another kind of Forever Red episode to kind of add in the certain Power Rangers that, of course, like, were through other seasons, but that is what it is. Or cover certain Power Rangers that, of course, weren't in the other Forever Red episode, obviously. But, when really looking at it also, there's like so many other color spectrums that I think also deserve their like forever insert color here episode, because that would be fair. So with that said, so we in the Power Rangers Wildforce episode 34, Forever Red, we have so many kind of Easter egg things in there. We have Serpentera coming back. We go on to, of course, have the Power Rangers face off against this threat on the moon. And we also really have the I think the only goofy thing is how they go on to defeat Serpentera in this episode, because like again, there's only so much you can kind of do with really having like a lot of just red Power Rangers, and that's it. Like you can't combine all the red Zords together to become like some Megazord or whatever. So yeah, or really just have whoever the Power Rangers are for that episode go on and Megazord up and then wipe out Serpentera. You can't go on and do that. So we had to just kind of go on and do something that is to showcase well Cole, who is to be the Red Wildforce Ranger. And so, yeah, so with that said, yeah, let's just go into the spoilers of these episodes. Let me know in the comments below if you were to go on and be able to see Power Ranger Zeo King for a Day or the Forever Red episode. I think both of these are all three of these episodes are all available on YouTube somewhere. You can find them via there and kind of watch the episodes. You can also go on to other apps. You could possibly go on to Doxy, Doxcy, and you can see a pretty decent amount of Power Rangers episodes. Some of them may not exactly be the best picture quality as others, because really when looking at it, a lot of the episodes are to really be fairly aged. So yeah, you might want to go on and just find the app that of which is to either have these or to go on and get a like restored disc copy of all the other Power Ranger seasons, because more than likely that's probably the one selling point of Power Rangers, is just to go on and like recollect all of the seasons via discs and then just be able to watch them at your own leisure. So with that said, let's go on and let's just double five this bad boy up. And I think it's about that time to just go into, of course, what is to be spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time you spoil these episodes. So, evidently, we have the juice bar for Power Rangers Zeo that is to kind of shift, not into Turbo, but shift into being this kind of this beach camp. And so Ernie, instead of having like, he's having the juice bar outdoors, and so I was like, okay, like this is kind of interesting. But we still also have the youth center, the juice bar. So for the beginning of this episode, we have Tommy, who is in the power chamber, and he's kind of fixing on some equipment. He's kind of just doing some busy work, and then all of a sudden Tommy then sees the White Ranger that of course was to be kind of held in these kind of glass cases. All of a sudden the White Ranger is to be kind of wanting to like be touching up against this glass to want to get to Tommy. And then all of a sudden we see like this weird hologram of the Tiger Zord, and then all of a sudden the White Ranger is there right in front of Tommy. I'm like, oh, sweet! So are we gonna have like a Red Zeo fight like the White Ranger? And I'm like, wouldn't that be cool? No. But still I thought that this whole image of things was cool anyways. So we instead have Tommy that is having the White Ranger and a bunch of cogs all start to surround Tommy, and come to find out this is all some kind of a dream sequence, because we then shift to have Tommy being in this chair in this unidentified location, Machine Empire somewhere, and Tommy is getting his brain drained. And so we have Princess Archerina, and we have Prince Gasket looking on, like, yeah, like what we're doing is working. This is great. So we turn to have Prince Gasket, who's looking at the monster of the week, who is Altor, and he is going to go on and try to get equal to matching abilities as, of course, Tommy would have. So Altor goes on and is to get the same kind of equipment as Tommy is to have, so he can go on and get equal power to Tommy. So I thought that was really interesting. So we have the Power Rangers that are going on, and they're like, well, hey, where could Tommy be? He's missing. No clue where he could be. So we all of a sudden have the Power Rangers going into the juice bar, and Bulk and Skull are telling everybody that they have gone on and spotted the red Power Ranger, Zeo, in this, or by this lake. And so we have the Power Rangers, after they hear this news, they're like, okay, like, well, let's go to the command center and let's ask Alpha and Zordon about this. So we have the Rangers going on to, oh, I said command center. I meant the power chamber. So they go on to the power chamber, which is to be the new, like, command center. So, because the other one blew up. So it's like, hey, here's the other one. All right, great. So, like, here's the bigger, cooler set piece. Isn't this awesome? So we go on to just have both Kat and both Jason go off to go off to investigate the whole claim of what Bulk and Skull were to state, and have the rest of the Rangers kind of just sitting back, kind of ready for there to be some kind of attack going on, or just like they're really just trying to send as few Rangers as they can to kind of assess the situation. And then if something horribly awry happens, they have other Rangers at the power chamber to just be like, okay, hey, like on Earth, this is this threat. You guys have to handle this by yourselves. So we have Jason, who morphs into the Gold Ranger, which I think a lot of people like the Gold Ranger anyways. Probably even more so people might like Jason as the Gold Ranger much more so than the Red Ranger, but some people may differ. Some people might have said, like, no, like, the Gold Zeo Ranger sucked, and I don't know. It's whatever your feeling is. I actually liked the weapon that the Gold Zeo Ranger had, that, like, kind of weird, like, staff thing, that he would go on and, like, blast out to, like, that looked really cool. When I was a kid, I liked the toy of the Zeo Gold Ranger thing when I was a kid. I don't have it now, but yeah, but that was like legitimately like really cool. So we have Kat and we have Jason go off and they're morphed. And so what happens is that Jason is to see this hologram, this mirage, and Jason is to kind of run towards it. And Tommy is calling for help. So we have Kat that warns Jason. It's like, well, hey, I think this is a mirage. I think this is a trap. And but Jason has gotten far too close to it now, and so he ends up getting sucked in to this portal. And then we have Tommy who laughs. So Kat is realizing, well, that was just a trap. I'm gonna go back to the power chamber, and I'm gonna just take my helmet off, take it off to the side. So while everybody else is just in their regular civilian clothes, Kat's wearing her Power Rangers outfit. So, because nobody has to match. It doesn't happen that way. So, we then also are to have Bulk and Skull want to also make their way to try and meet up with the Red Power Ranger, and they get sucked in just like Jason did. So it's kind of like reminding me of Power Rangers Turbo, the movie, all over again, where we had Jason and we had Kimberly, who is Amy Jo Johnson. And by the way, I saw the video of Amy Jo Johnson, who was paying tribute to Jason David Frank and was like singing, and I was like, man, she sounds great as far as singing goes, because of course, like, just being emotional, like, how can you go on and like say it's like, yeah, her being emotional was great, but like, I get it, like, it was just like something she had to do and something she felt she needed to do. So good on her for like just getting that out of her system, and I thought that was great. So we and then Bulk and Skull was in the Turbo movie, and they came back, and that was kind of funny. When like Skull goes on and states is like, I'm Antonio Banderas. But anyways, back to the episode. So the Power Rangers are trying to figure out what to do. And so the power chamber, it seems, is to figure out how to get some kind of viewing globe-like connection to what's going on in that Machine Empire world. So that way they can get some kind of like idea of what is going on with Jason, and then they end up realizing that also like Bulk and Skull got sucked in there. So we go on to have Bulk and Skull, who are in this prison cell, and they meet up with Triton, and like in this like first kind of early episode, like there really isn't much of them going on besides that. We also had at some point when after Gasket is to go on and convince Tommy that the Power Rangers are to be the villains of his story, and that Tommy is to be the king of the Machine Empire, and Gasket also convinces him by showing all of this footage of the Power Rangers going on and blasting all of these cities and all these buildings and creating all this destruction that is really just edited footage easily. they couldn't have gone on and really like photoshopped that kind of that looked really good. That could have looked really good, but it didn't. So Tommy gets convinced by that video. It's like, okay, like I get it. Like the Power Rangers are evil, even though they're wearing the exact same outfit that I am. And Gasket had told Tommy that he's been fighting him, or he's been fighting them for like a very long time. He's been fighting against the Power Rangers. And what if you would have gone on and had Tommy like stay as the leader of the Machine Empire? What if it would have been like Shattered Grid all over again? Where you go on and have Zeo Tommy that never gave up that that throne. Wouldn't that have been also a really interesting story? Maybe like that would have been really interesting to kind of do as like a goofy Shattered Grid Part 2 story. I don't know. It is what it is. So, interestingly enough. So, we have Jason that goes on to this arena. And so now we have Jason that doesn't have his like his weapon, his staff. Whatever that weapon was called, I don't remember. But it doesn't factor into this story anyways. So we have Jason that is to go on and supposedly be fed to the new monster Altar, because Altor had gone on and fought all these cogs and defeated all of them. So now Altor needs to go on and be fed to Jason. So Altor and Jason are fighting, and like this is to also remind us of like the Green Candle episode where Jason tries to go on and save the Green Candle, but then Goldar shows up. And it's like, I'm sorry, Red Ranger. You will not get the Green Candle. Basically, Goldar is almost like a Macho Man. Ooh, yeah. So, we have Jason that starts to fight Altor, and the thing that Jason starts to notice is that Altor can almost expect what Jason is going to do next. And so Jason is starting to realize it's like, well, hey, like it seems like you're mimicking what Tommy is mimicking. It's like, so then Jason figures it out. It's like, hey, Gasket, did you go on and give Altor like Tommy's abilities, Tommy's power, Tommy's moveset kind of thing? And so we have Jason who figures it out. And so when Jason calls out to Tommy through Altor, it seems that all of a sudden that's when Altor starts losing Tommy's ability. And so that's when Jason goes on to take the staff that Altor has and destroys him with it, just kills him with it. So Altor is now defeated by his own weapon. So now that there is no, there of course is no champion for the Machine Empire, we then of course, like this episode, this story is to be very like Gladiator like. If you guys of course were to have seen the Russell Crowe Gladiator movie, because it's a big film anyways. So we have Jason go on to defeat this monster, and we next have to assume that Tommy is going to step up and try to fight off Jason. And so we have Zordon, we have Alpha, and the rest of the Power Rangers who have to realize it's like, well, hey, like, we need to have the rest of the Power Rangers go off to the Machine Empire and but the Power Rangers can't figure out on how to get there. So we go on and we have Rito and we have Goldar, who are all of a sudden kind of shifting around in their TV that I guess can get every channel everywhere. And so they're, of course, at their mobile base RV, which I think that's what it's just called for the RV of that episode. So we Altor, yeah, that's the real pronunciation. Mobile base RV, yeah, that's what it's called. So we have Rito and we have Goldar that are catching Gasket and catching the mobile Empire channel. And so we have Gasket that goes on to like state that he's going to go on and destroy the Power Rangers. And so what ends up happening is Rita, Lord Zed, Rito, Goldar, and Finster are all watching this, and they're like, oh my god, like, we need to figure out a way to now, like, go on and help out the Power Rangers, weirdly enough, because they realize that if the Machine Empire wins, then the mobile RV, or mobile base RV, as well as Lord Zed, Rita, Goldar, Rito, Finster, they're all going to be stuck. Where is Squat and Babu? Are they dead? I'm not sure. Maybe they're just stuck in the RV somewhere. I don't know. But I'm sure it was just cost cutting. And so they end up concocting, well, Finster concocts this plan of being able to like use some power to muster being able to teleport them. An interesting thing about Finster, he's actually tying into the Soul of the Dragon story, which was like, oh, wow, like, so they actually had like some tying into like the Mighty Morphin stuff for that story, but it was also tying into some of the Power Rangers super Ninja Steel stuff with Tommy having a son named JJ, who we find out in the Soul of the Dragon that's actually Tommy and Kat's son, which, cool, that's interesting. And so now I can understand when Jason David Frank did that interview in the Power Playback YouTube channel. I was like, oh yeah, like, so, like, that makes sense now, because I didn't read really Soul of the Dragon, but I found out what the story was. So I was like, all right, okay. So come to find out, we have like a Green Ranger SPD. Like, that's really cool. That of course was to be like having the gold dragon shield. That looked really cool. Anyways, so the Power Rangers go on and they have the ability to be able to teleport to the arena. So now we have Bulk and Skull with Tritor, and we end up having Tritor that mentions where he's from, and that he's like, hey, like, you're from Earth? Like, like, that's not too good. And they're just like, well, why? And Tritor is like, because, like, because Prince Gasket is going to go for your Earth and destroy it. So, like, that's why I'm stating that. So we have Tritor who's telling Bulk and Skull, it's like, well, hey, are you, like, defenders of your world? And Bulk and Skull are like, yeah, of course we are. And Tritor is like, good, because I'm gonna need your help to escape out of here. And they're just like, so what now? You want us to do what now? And we consistently have Bulk who is like smacking these suspenders. And so we have Bulk and Skull realizing that they're actually going to have to do some action sequences. And actually, both Bulk and Skull are really good at doing some fighting. It might be mistake fighting, but fighting anyways. So, in all honesty, I would love to see like a whole Bulk and Skull episode, or maybe if there was a comic book thing where like, because I know that they had legitimately become Power Rangers at some point in the comic books somewhere. Like I would love to just see Bulk and Skull just be fighting all these things and somehow just luckily just beat everything by pure luck. Not skill, just pure luck of just smacking into stuff like whoops, trip and fall on a banana and you knock down a number of putties. That'd be funny. So I liked what they were doing here with Bulk and Skull, actually giving them some action sequences. Yeah, you can state that like Bulk and Skull never legitimately become on the show Power Rangers, but they get pretty dang close. So especially with this episode, they're doing fight choreography, and it looked pretty cool. So we have Triton who goes on to go through all these hidden passages with Bulk and Skull, and then they make it to this place where they are to try to tear apart and rip down this this kind of force field that will have, of course, people be able to get off of this planet. So Triton is caging himself into this room so he can take down this, of course, force field. And so Triton is telling Bulk and Skull, it's like, good luck, my friends. Like, fight off all these cogs. So we have Bulk and Skull that are like, ugh! So they have like hands and arms of the cogs. So they chuck it at the cogs. The cogs just catch it. And they're like, oh crap. So, Bulk and Skull do a really decent job of taking out these cogs, and Triton goes and tears through this thing. And so, now back with Tommy and the rest of the Power Rangers. So, we have Tommy who needs to be convinced that he's Tommy, and so we finally just go on to have all the other Zeo Power Rangers that show up, and Kat comes to the idea of like, well, we can't go and fight Tommy. It just doesn't make sense because like it's Tommy. So Kat just powers down, and so Kat is to try to power down to convince Tommy, like, hey, like we're here to help you. And so Tommy goes on to just be so confused. He's like, you know what, this does seem right, but then again, like I want to believe what Gasket was telling me. So Tommy all of a sudden grabs for this blaster and is wanting so badly just to blast Kat or blast the Power Rangers. And so we all of a sudden have the other Power Rangers who are like, hey, let's follow her lead. So all the other Power Rangers besides Tommy power down. And so after that, everybody is trying to convince Tommy, like, hey, we are your friends. Like, we wouldn't go on and do this if we didn't, like, have to have you realize that this is, like we're here for you. And trying to remind you who we are. So Tommy, after every single one of his Power Rangers friends powered down, Tommy is convinced. Tommy's like, okay, like, I'm going to go on and I'm going to power down too, and I'm going to realize that Gasket was to, of course, be in the wrong here. So we now have it where Prince Gasket is like, well, okay, like, let's kind of bring in the peanut gallery and let's just kind of have them all come in here and let's just have them fight off the Power Rangers. And so when immediately we have the Rangers who try to morph, they're like, like that's not going to work, because Gasket is to say that his force field is so strong that now they cannot morph. So these Rangers are all going to die. And then, whoop, the force field comes off, and so now the Power Rangers end up getting their communicator, and they end up teleporting out of there. And so we also somehow have Tritor that goes on and is to teleport Bulk and Skull back to Earth and him to wherever he lives. And so, like, we go on to really at the end of this, we have Bulk and Skull that go on to go to this this beach camp, and they go on to explain to the Power Rangers, or all the guys, that is like, well, hey, we just saved the Power Rangers, we just helped them. And the Power Rangers are looking at Bulk and Skull and like, yeah, we believe you. And Bulk is like, you know what, I think that they're lying to our faces. Like, I think they're really just like not telling us the truth. And the Power Rangers are just like, no, like we really believe you. Like we know that you did this. And so Bulk and Skull is like, like I'm so upset. Like I'm just so distraught. I'm leaving. So that's how these two episodes end. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything that I forgot about via those two episodes. Like I know that there was just kind of like some of the story here that really was to be kind of very thinned out. I remember, like I think I forgot that Billy like came back to see what he can help the rest of the Power Rangers out with, but I didn't state that in the review. But because we just have Billy who kind of sticks around in the power chamber to continue to just kind of fix stuff, and then at some point he leaves for Aquitar, sadly enough. And so, which of course, like, wasn't David Yost's decision, but David Yost wanted to leave the show, and that was his decision, and they just had to figure out a way to write him off. So, it is what it is with that story. So, now we go on into Power Rangers Wildforce, episode 34, which of course is Forever Red. So, and immediately I'm trying to figure out exactly where to begin with this episode, because I'm immediately thinking like, what should I say here? Where should I go on? I think I might also need to pause here for a second. Let me pause here. The one thing that I forgot about was a scene between Queen Machina and Prince Sprocket, where we have Queen Machina going on and saying that that Prince Gasket is to be her #1 son, and then Sprocket ends up saying like, well, I thought I was your #1 son, and Queen Machina's like, well, you are, like trying to like comfort her kid. So that was the only thing that I kind of forgot about from that. So we had them show up. So now, of course, to go on and go into, of course, Power Rangers Forever Red. So, or Power Rangers Wildforce Forever Red. So we go into this episode and we have General Venjix, who is to go on the moon and is to be digging out Serpentera. And we have his 4 generals who are to be Guruk, Stelun, Tesla, and Automon. And so we have the general and all these other technically generals also, but still. So it's easy to not have to say General Benjix every single time. So they're taking all these cogs and trying to build out Serpentera from the moon. And so we have Andros that goes on to again be spying like he did in Power Rangers in Space, because Andros always just spies on people. So we have both Garrick and we have both Stelon, who notices Andros spying on them, and so they end up going on these horsebacks and start chasing after Andros. Andros runs and is to fly into his galaxy glider and fly off. So we now, of course, go on to have a state like, okay, like how of course is the other Wildforce Rangers, how are they tied into this? Only really the Red Ranger is really tied into this episode, because immediately he gets pulled away and all the other Rangers are just like, hey, what is he doing? And no one really cares. They're just like, oh yeah, I'm here for a minute, and then like Cole ends up getting pulled away by Carter Grayson, the Red Lightspeed Ranger, which I was like, yeah, like every time we were to ever go on and see like the Red Lightspeed Rangers like being kind of added into any of the other episodes, because I really liked Lightspeed Rescue. I think that was kind of like a really interesting, like really fun show that I think was really complicated, but at certain points, but still, like I liked Lightspeed Rescue. That actually was it was like a pretty fun approach of having like emergency Power Rangers and so on and so forth. So that was fun. I liked that. So, anyways, we had Carter Grayson going on and meeting up with Cole, the Red Cole Evans, the Red Lion Wildforce Ranger, and so Carter is to go on and call him over because he has a mission for just him. Not all the other Wildforce Rangers, they can just F off, sadly enough. So we also had Bulk and Skull, who are at the beach club. I don't know if I said beach camp or the beach club. It's beach club, my bad. And this is where they were by the end of Power Rangers Zeo. So I'm like, okay, so now this area makes sense. Because before I was like, why is this environment the way it is? And then I'm like, oh yeah, like I just saw like the beach camp. And so like considering now Tommy is now Zeo, it makes all the sense in the world. So instead of him being some other ranger. So we have Bulk and Skull who are realizing that there is a phone call, and this of course is for Tommy. So we have Bulk who politely is to like say to Tommy, it's like, hey, you have a phone call, and he's just like, give it to me. So Tommy ends up taking the call, and I'm assuming this is Andros letting him know what's going on the moon, so that he has to kind of be called in. So we have Carter and we have both Cole that make their way to the Nasada spaceport to then go on and meet up with both Wes and Eric, who of course are the Red Time Force Ranger and the Red Quantum Ranger. So we have, of course, both Cole and Carter, who is like, well, hey, like, why are we here? And they are, of course, to also showcase TJ, who of course is the red Turbo Ranger. And I'm like, yeah, TJ, yeah. And so I think they also is there might have been like, yeah, I think they just showcased the Turbo Ranger. So I'm like, okay, so like I'm trying to think if there's any other Ranger that they show after this before we actually get to Tommy. So Andros is a state that once he arrives, that like everyone was kind of sent here by Tommy, and so when Tommy kind of walks in, we have Cole who's like, "Who's that?" And TJ's like, "Oh man, that's Tommy." It's like, cause Cole is supposed to know who Tommy is. Like, yeah, he might be a legendary ranger, but like to Cole, it's like he may not be as up on the like the Power Rangers lore as everyone else is. So he's just kind of new to the game. So Tommy goes on. It's like, okay, uh, like like let's kind of get ready for like let's kind of tell everybody why we're all here. So we have Andros that states that Andros was to have made at KO-35, which of course is his home planet, because of course you don't remember, Andros of course is an alien and he's from KO-35. So Andros had made the Astro megaship and made it to be a Mark II. So I'm like, man, what if man, I would have loved to have seen like the Astro megaship just show up again and just be a Megazord or something, because I liked Power Rangers in space, but like really it's just like a cool set piece that we have. So but then again, like they're still kind of waiting for at least one more Red Ranger, because we of course had Andros who had called uh, Leo Corbett, who is the Red Galaxy Ranger, and also had called the Red Alien Ranger from Aquitar, and they're coming. So they're like, well, hey, aren't we supposed to be waiting for one more Ranger? And Tommy's like, well, I don't think he's gonna come. And so all of a sudden we have this person coming in via this motorcycle, and he of course ends up taking the helmet off, and this of course ends up being Jason. So it's like, hey, you didn't think that you would go on and do this mission without the original Red Ranger now, would you? And Tommy's like, So they go on in the Astro Megaship, and now they're getting their mission layout to basically state that Serpentera is to be now on the moon, and we have all these generals that are trying to dig it out. And so we, of course, have Jason, who's relaying how powerful Serpentera really is, because a lot of these guys don't really know what Serpentera is because it's been so long since they've heard about it. And also, it's helping the audience remember what Serpentera is, especially for what season Serpentera really was, for whatever reason, because a number of things have happened through a number of different Power Ranger seasons. So they're like, okay, like, all right, like, we get, like, what's all going on, so that's good enough. So we, of course, end up seeing that Leo Corbett is going on and finding his sword that, of course, has been set in this position, and he's whipping his sword out to then, like, yeah, like, I'm going to go on and help these guys out. So I don't remember what sword that the Lost Galaxy Ranger had, but I know there's probably a technical word of that, but I'm just gonna power sword. I don't know. I would have to go on and watch Lost Galaxy, which I haven't really gone on and watched much of that. I always wanted to go on and watch the time of which that Andromeda ends up becoming a Power Ranger, and I think that was in Lost Galaxy. That would actually be a really interesting story to have seen, but I haven't seen it. I've never seen much of Lost Galaxy, and I've kind of seen a lot of episodes of a number of seasons. But anyways, that's one that I really should have gotten to, but I just never did, because of course I really liked In Space, so it was kind of like a closure moment for Andromeda to turn around and just become a Power Ranger. So we go on to have all the Rangers in the Astro Megaship fly to the moon. So we have the Astro Megaship making a landing onto the moon, and so we of course now have to have all of the Red Rangers go on and fight off all these cogs. And so we start to see some really interesting like fight sequences here. I think we like the one cool thing was when Andros goes on and he's just kind of hanging on to this one kind of railing, and he has his kind of body positioned, and then he all of a sudden like does this like kind of flip thing. That was pretty cool. We also have Jason that goes on and does this kind of like this split kick, and I also thought that was pretty cool. And like there's a number of other just kind of fighting scenarios with these cogs. So we go on to, of course, have all of the Power Rangers realize, like, okay, like we now need to go on and fight against all the generals. So we have all the Rangers that end up morphing. And so we actually get to see all of the cutscenes from all of the other shows, and it's done in legitimate fashion instead of just kind of retconning everyone's morph to now just be like, oh, this is what it looks like now. This is what it is for us now. Like, we're going to go on and just do something a little bit better or a little bit different because it just looks better. And I'm just like, no, like, I want, like, the original, like, can't you just remaster all that stuff and just make it look really good? Come on! Like, you're just reshooting the same stuff from the shows before. Remaster that stuff. Make it look better. Instead of just kind of making it look more CGI'd. So, everyone morphs. We, of course, have the always sequence where there's huge, massive numbers of pyro and all this, like spray of, like, red or blue or whatever the color is this week, which ends up being red. So, we have the generals just kind of running off to Serpentera as it's already been mostly built out, as Andros had spotted. So, we start to see some of these generals trying to run off and make it to Serpentera, and we have Cole, who starts to kind of like chase after the generals, and so that ends up kind of stopping most of the generals and going on to then have all the Power Rangers start fighting off some of the generals. So, and we also have both Leo and the Alien Ranger on Andros's Galaxy Glider kind of protect Cole from getting shot up here or getting hurt. So they kind of grab him and they kind of fly him off, so that way all the Rangers are now justifiably there in the vicinity. So I think the weirdest thing is, I think we had Leo, who goes on to like power down, and then he then has to morph again. And he's like the only Ranger that has to go on and do that. He's like, hey guys, I'm here, and then he has to morph again. And so it's like, what was the waste of time of that? But I get it. Like, show the character was there. It's like, good. Like, give him more screen time. Awesome. Like, no, like, sarcasm of that. I really, like, for all these guys, get them as much screen time as they can. Because, yeah, just having, like, one scene where, like, they're all there is pretty awesome. So Leo morphs back. So we start to have the Power Rangers start taking down some of the the generals here, we have at one moment where I think we have both. Uh, we have the Wildforce and the Mighty Morphin Red Ranger go on and take out one of the generals. We also have, I think, In Space and Zeo, I think, are teamed up together, and they take down, I think, Garrick, which is like the green general. Uh, I think we also have Turbo TJ, and we have Lost Galaxy, who goes on and I think takes down Tesla. It's either Tesla or it's one of the generals. I'm not quite sure. Uh, God, I wish I knew the places where all these generals were. There's so many. There's scrambling. There's a bunch of fighting going on. So we go on to, of course, have all the Power Rangers like kind of go their own separate things to just kind of take down certain generals, and of course they easily do. So all the generals are now down besides General Venjix, who goes on in Serpentera and starts taking control of it. And so they're like, "Oh God, like what do we do now? Uh, like I guess all is lost." And so we then, oh, Tommy. Tommy was to mention that the location of the place that uh, Serpentera was a Sea of Tranquility on the moon. Funny thing about that is that Tommy mentioned that he had a problem with saying the word Sea of Tranquility, and he ended up needing like the saying red leather, yellow leather to try to be able to state uh, Sea of Tranquility because he couldn't say it. He couldn't say the line. And so red leather, yellow leather helped him try to go on and say the word Sea of Tranquility. So I just wanted to state that because I put that down somewhere. So we had the Red Ranger from Wildforce going on to call his Wildforce rider, which, if you guys ever know about any Power Ranger season, you would realize that every single one of these things always has to have some motorcycle or some car or some goofy vehicle that I'm just like, okay, like whatever they just have to do to just make this ranger seem uh more unique than all the others. I thought the Wild Force Rider was really goofy looking, and it kind of has like these butterfly wings, and I'm like, okay, a car that now flies. Whatever this story needs it to do is just whatever it needs to do. So we have the red Wild Force Rider, and the red Wild Force Ranger gets on it, and so he flies and is trying to take down Serpentera. I'm like, this seems so outmatched. Like, you would think that the Wild Force Ranger would be calling for his Zord, and then the Zord would figure out a way to defeat this thing. But no, guy just gets in his Wild Force Rider, and all he does, he pulls like the Independence Day way to defeat Serpentera by just going on, and when the Serpentera's mouth is to open and it's blasting this thing, we had the Wild Force Rider and the Red Wild Force Ranger just pushing its way through Serpentera's mouth, and that ends up blowing up Serpentera and the general inside it. But oddly enough, we had the Wild Force Ranger and his Wild Force Rider that are completely unscathed or completely okay. So after that, we then go on and have everybody getting off of the Astro Mega ship and making it back to Earth, and like now everybody's just like all like high fiving and whatever, and like another successful mission. And so we have Tommy that goes on and thanks all the Red Rangers for going on and doing this mission. And so we have Cole who like states as Tommy's walking away, it's like, well, hey, like, so that's Tommy. And the guys are just like, yeah, like that's Tommy. And so the funny thing of it is now all the other Red Rangers are stating like how technically they're just a little bit better than Tommy, because of course Jason would go on and state that uh, that Tommy would just be gone all the time in the juice bar smooching with Kimberly while he was doing all the heavy lifting, and we would go on to have Eric, who is the Red Quantum Ranger, who goes on to state that his Rex Zord would take and destroy the Dragon Zord, and we had Andros who like states that he's saved two worlds, not just this one, and so we all of a sudden have TJ mention it's like, well, hey, like, you guys ever heard the story of the one time that I became a pizza topping? And they're like, yeah, no. So they all walk off, and that's when, of course, we have the episode end with a hurrah hurrah moment, a goofy story, and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, it was also kind of interesting when Jason was with the Wildforce Ranger, because really Jason just kind of comes off as like, hey, yeah, like I'm the original and I'm number one, and but then he's like, well, hey, like, you know what, kid, like you're really doing something good here, like, all right, like kind of giving him props, and I was like, okay, so like it does come off as like, yeah, Jason is the best, but like he will give people props when like they deserve it. So it's like, okay, like I'm not stating that that's just like Austin St. John's way of doing things, but no, it's just like the way it's written. Um, but yeah, so with that said, I think that wraps up this thing. I'm just gonna get out of here because I know that these were like an hour all together with all these three episodes. So I'm just gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything that I had missed, or there might have been some action that at some points I had misplaced, because I'm sure there's just a lot of big fighting sequences and whatever, and it's not so easy to figure out exactly who was to fight where and where was to fight who, and so on and so forth. So, with that said, I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Two things that I had forgotten about. I had forgotten about one thing. I'll quickly correct myself. Is I think instead of Tommy and Andros teaming up, it was actually Tommy and Wes that was fighting off Gerlach. And we also had we had a scene in here where General Venjix was going on and doing a speech in front of his other generals and the other cogs, and he was going on and stating that he was gonna go on and take over in honor, or take over the earth in honor of King Mondo, who of course now have this just be a like kind of statue of him, because I had gone on and I had covered a little bit of Power Ranger Zeo after it seems that King Mondo was gone, and now we of course had Prince Gasket who was stepping in, and so like I was just like, okay, like what definitively happened to King Mondo, and really, like, I can probably go on and probably make some assessments, but not really quite sure. I'll have to go on and watch some more Power Rangers Zeo to definitively find out what really happened with King Mondo. But other than that, yeah, I'm just gonna go on and get out of here. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about these episodes, or just if you went on to go on and watch any Power Rangers episodes, or maybe you have personal Power Rangers favorite episodes. Let me know in the comments below. Maybe I'll go on and check them out. Like, yeah, like I think I do really like blah 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 episode, because yeah, I think that really is a good episode. So with that said, I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, buddy.